My name is Emma Jones. I run a business called Enterprise Nation. I started my first company, for those of you that remember the high days of the dot-com boom in the year 2000. So I'd spent 5 years working for a big accounting firm called Arthur Andersen, which again usually gives me a barometer of age in the audience actually for people who actually knew. Yes, lovely, I have one nodding head. So Arthur Andersen was a very big professional services firm, which when I joined was the world's largest. It was renowned as the world's best professional services firm, and then it sadly went down in a scandal because it did an accounting scandal with a company called Enron. Anyway, by which time I'd left, I had nothing to do with Enron, but I left in the year 2000 to start my first business, which was a dot-com company. And it's really interesting coming to speak for you today because, of course, this is called an online seller summit, and I was just kind of thinking this morning that rewind, shockingly, 18 years. For those of you that were in business kind of around the year 2000 and when it was in the height of the dot-com boom, in a way it was an incredibly exciting time to be starting a business because the press was full of stories. I'm a big FT reader, and every single day I would pick up that pink paper and it was full of stories of people raising a lot of money and changing the way that industries were operating. And I was kind of really motivated and galvanized by that to start this first business. But the reason why I reflected this morning is when I first started this company, so my first business was called Techlocate.com, and it was an online inward investment vehicle because what I'd done for Arthur Andersen was attract international companies into the UK. And me and my business partner started this business, and we did a business plan, which I still have. It's as fat as you like, this great big business plan, which essentially said in all of its tome, we want to raise £3 million to start this business, and we have absolutely no idea how we're going to pay it back. And this is what this business plan said. And at the time, we took it to a venture capital company, and we said we need to borrow £3 million. We have no idea how we're going to pay it back, but we're a dot-com company. And what do you think they said?
Yes.
They did. They said, here's the money. Anyway, I'm not here today to tell the Techlocate.com story. We said no to their money. I was brought up by a mum who ran restaurants, so to me the whole idea of kind of taking someone's money without knowing how to pay it back just seemed absolute nonsense. So we actually raised the money through making sales, and within 2 years we kind of sold that business to a bigger company called Tenon. But Enterprise Nation has been going for 10 years. It was started to help businesses start and grow. When we first started, it was to help people start and grow a business from home, because Techlocate.com had started from a home base. We were 5 people when we sold the business, and that is kind of how Enterprise Nation started life. 10 years on, we're now a thriving community of 70,000 small businesses across the UK. So what I wanted to briefly cover this morning is ways in which we're seeing our members grow. And there really are kind of 3 key things that every time I see a successful business in our universe, they are doing one, if not more, than one of these kind of 3 things. So I just wanted to cover that. I know you're a very established and kind of distinguished audience today in terms of having spoken with a couple of you. I think you're already doing some of these things, but hopefully I might just be able to offer a little bit of thought, as I say, in terms of what we're seeing. So the first thing we're seeing, which I have had a conversation with a couple of you already, is these are 2 of our members, a lovely business called Radnor Preserves. This is a great brand called Professor Scrubbington's. And the reason why I put these guys up is what they're doing a great job of is selling to bigger retailers. Monica mentioned this in terms of she'd come to an event. We do a series of events which we've run for 5 years called the Exchange Series, which is where we match small businesses with buyers from big retailers. Alice was just saying that she'd been to one as well. And the reason we've run that for 5 years is because we are continuing to see big retailers say we want small businesses in our supply chain. And I will still remember actually the first company that we kind of got into a big retailer probably was about 5 years ago, a beautiful business called Cloudy and Finn. It started by 2 mums. It was a yogurt lolly for kids that they'd come up with, and their very first order was with Sainsbury's. So they just started. Sainsbury's said, right, our first order, we're going to stock you in 400 stores, and that was kind of Cloudy and Finn's pretty much kind of break into the market. And the guy at Sainsbury's who placed that order, a brilliant man called James Bailey, at the time I said to him, him, you're buying from like Procter & Gamble and Unilever, which makes your life really easy. They've got production process, they've got scale. Why are you looking to buy from people like Cloudy and Finn, who beautifully, it's not being recorded, is it? The day that Cloudy and Finn got the order, Lucy, who's one of the founders, Lucy Woodhouse, they'd kind of done this pitch, the order was coming through, she called me, and I'm really sorry, but I have to say just how this phone call went. So she said, we've been chosen, Sainsbury's have chosen us, they put an order in 400 stores, and literally down the phone, all I heard her say was, fuck! So it's kind of from her side, they were like, how do we cash flow this, how do we scale up production? And if you're Sainsbury's, that presents challenges for you because you've got someone who you're giving the business to who's maybe not mature enough to know how to do it. But of course, James Bailey's reply was, this is what we're looking to do to bring more footfall into our stores. We want the authenticity, we want the story behind this business. And interestingly, and not to go on too much about Sainsbury's, but of course they're about to get bigger with the Asda acquisition. We're in touch with them because quite a few of our businesses said when they get so big, so Sainsbury's and Asda coming together, they're going to be huge. Is that going to be good or bad for small business? We called up James Bailey and said, what's the view? Are you going to suddenly, now you're so huge, you're just going to go for the big suppliers? He said, far from it. They're setting up a whole group to look for all categories of who are the innovative small businesses that are delivering things that we need to be on top of, because they still want to keep, they know that their customers are kind of looking for fast-paced change, so they're looking for the talent that's out there on the market. And I know you're online sellers, so just a little thing to mention in terms of a connection on that. We hosted the Amazon Academy yesterday in Newcastle, which is a big event we run for Amazon, which is for all Amazon sellers. And I interviewed 3 Amazon entrepreneurs on stage just like this. One of them, a lovely business called Cheeky Panda. They make bamboo tissue. He's selling phenomenally well on Amazon all over the world. And he's just got into John Lewis and is about to be stocked in more stores. And he genuinely believes that he is ranking on Amazon. The reviews, the kind of traction that he's getting made it a very easy decision for John Lewis to say yes. So interestingly now, the physical stores are looking at how are you performing online, because then it's kind of a good influence on their decision. So selling to bigger brands is one thing. I'm not really going to cover this because having just seen the little Kahoot game on who's in the audience, I think most people are product-based businesses, but these are amazing things for small businesses at the moment, which is large corporates opening up, I guess you could call them accelerators, which is where they're saying they're coming out to market. So the one that was the first one, I don't know if you can see JLab in the bottom right corner. We've spoken about John Lewis already, but John Lewis, you probably know, is struggling a little bit to attract people into its physical stores, and yet they don't feel that their heart is as a technology business. So with a great entrepreneur called Stuart Marks, they set up this accelerator where they came out to market and said, if anyone's got any good ideas around retail, digital technology, please come in and we will give you the trial and John Lewis will invest in you, etc. And you can see across the board, across different sectors, these accelerators are kind of popping up. And almost there's one every 2 weeks at the moment. Another big company says, we're looking for innovation, we're looking for suppliers, we'll open an accelerator. And then the other thing that so I mentioned I work with government. I have a 1-day-a-week government job, which is called SME Crown Rep. And this is to work with government to make sure that government hits a target that they set a few years ago, which is to spend £1 in every 3 with small businesses by 2022. So various ministers made this commitment, but it's an incredible figure. So £1 in every 3 of central government spend has to be spent with small businesses by 2022. That equates to about £15 billion worth of stuff every year. And you may be thinking, well, that's not relevant to me. I sell food or I sell fashion. Government buys everything. And so I do a webinar about every 2 weeks with a buyer. So literally in the past couple of weeks, I just had the man who buys food for prisoners. By the way, if there's any fish cake or chocolate biscuit makers here, you just have these bizarre occasions where the lady on the webinar, who's from a business called Bid Food, which does all the buying for the prisons, did you know 58 million meals a year are served to prisoners? 58 million meals a year, and these are good meals. Anyway, the lady from VidFood was saying 60% of our suppliers are small businesses. We're always looking for small businesses. And somebody asked the question, is there anything in particular you're looking for at the moment? And back came the response, fish cakes and chocolate biscuits. And I'm just like, just amazing. I mean, I joke about this, but the point is to make, which is government literally is buying everything. And as I say, there is a push for them to buy more from SMEs. This is a website called Contracts Finder. Any contract valued at over £10,000 has to be published on Contracts Finder. So it might just be worth you going on. It's free to go on, free to search, and just search to see, is government buying my category of product? Because it's definitely a route through to growth. The second thing that we're seeing businesses do well, and I probably don't need to mention this to this audience, and I know Monica mentioned you've got DIT coming in this afternoon, but is exporting. So these are images from trade missions that we've run. We did a food and drink trade mission to Paris last year, which you may think is mad. In fact, it was a really interesting one, because when we said, right, we're going to do a food and drink trade mission to France, people said, what? There's no way French people will buy food and drink from British companies. But it was fascinating, because we took these businesses, and what you realise in the French market is, and forgive me if there's any French people in the room, but the French have been renowned for having quite long lunches kind of previously, with wonderful food and copious amounts of wine. But in fact, as of course the pace of work has kind of got quicker, the French consumer is increasingly looking for food on the go, and they literally do call it food on the go. And so the Brits are pretty good at food on the go. So snacking, free from food. We took an amazing kind of soup business. There was egg making businesses, and all these products where the French market is saying the British people are really good at this quick consuming food. We have been kind of coming from behind in the French market. This is what we're looking to buy. We've done China, which, just a quick thing, of course, China, absolutely incredible as a market opportunity. And I know this is an online seller marketplace forum, so of course you'll know about places like Tmall in terms of how that gives you entry to that incredible country where billions of people are looking for British made and designed products. So interestingly, at Amazon Academy yesterday, you probably know this if you sell on Amazon, that majority of Amazon sellers are intrinsically selling overseas, just because Amazon gives you so many international customers. And a new guy from the Department for International Trade, who's heading up exports, their new Director General, came to speak yesterday. And when he went off stage, we had 250 people in the room, and I said, who is stopping exporting on account of Brexit? So out of all of the 250 people, who's going to stop trading overseas on account of Brexit coming down the line? And not a single hand went up, which of course he was delighted about. So I feel at the moment that people are not saying we're going to stop exporting. What is slightly worrying is hearing that European consumers maybe stop putting in orders with UK companies, but I do wonder if now is the time to look further beyond Europe to places like the US, like China, like India, where in fact they're very much open for business. So exporting we think is huge, and just these images here that I just show is, so this Amazon Academy that we run, who's selling on Amazon at the moment? Oh wow, okay, have any of you ever been to an Amazon Academy? Okay, please come. Only because it's a free event and Amazon are all over it, and it's all their kind of latest developments that they kind of talk about. So it's definitely worth coming. The next event is in Cardiff in September, which may not suit everyone, but Amazon is very vocal at the moment about trying to help sellers do more business, and you probably know that over 50% of the trade that's done on Amazon now is via individual and independent sellers. I just mentioned this Facebook. So for Facebook, we run a campaign called She Means Business, which, sorry gentlemen in the audience, this was not our instruction, this came down from Sheryl Sandberg, that it was for women only. And you may think, well, what's the connection with export around a Facebook campaign? And we go around the country, we train thousands of women on how to boost their business on Facebook and of course Instagram. And the export connection here is a statistic which I do not think Facebook puts out to market enough, is that 200 million people from outside of the UK are connected to a Facebook business page in Britain. So 200 million people from outside of this country are connected to a British business on Facebook, which I think is just sensational. So huge export potential, and we're working with Facebook to say, how can we make sure that businesses who have a presence on Facebook and Instagram are making the most of all these potential international customers that are coming to have a look. So export is definitely something, and again, for this audience, you may think, oh, I'm preaching to the converted, but the third thing that we see businesses who are growing do really well is what we call make the most of the digital opportunity. So if you're selling via your own website, are you making the most of social? And I just show these businesses here. They're kind of very different, but borrowmydoggy.com, does anyone know this business? Yeah, I love the fact how many people know about this. So it's where you can borrow dogs. And it may sound ridiculous, but Ricky, who runs this, has now got an incredibly profitable business, which she actively talks about wouldn't exist if Facebook hadn't existed. So she started out on Facebook saying, who wants to borrow my dog? It then became bigger. This is now a fully fledged international business where she's making decent return. And this is Symmetry Breakfast. Has anyone come across this? Please have a look at Symmetry Breakfast on Instagram. The guy who started it, Michael, came to speak for us maybe about just under 2 years ago. He'd got about 500,000 followers on Instagram at the time. And what he does is he takes pictures of symmetrical breakfasts. Every day he takes a picture of symmetrical breakfast. He's now got, he's now got maybe 800,000 followers. So he takes a picture of symmetrical breakfast every day, uploads it onto Instagram, and people kind of say to me, Emma, why do you talk about this from a business perspective? But again, in terms of how this man is monetizing this, he just came out with a best-selling book. It's now translated into Japanese and Chinese. He's doing high-end consulting to restaurants on how they can be Instagram friendly. He is making a fortune. And in fact, we wrote to him a couple of months ago and said, it would be amazing to have you come back and speak on how the past couple of years has been for you. And he just wrote back to me and said, speak to my agent. So that's what the beauty of digital technology can do for you. So I've got my kind of 2-minute warning sign. So as I say, kind of the 3 things that we're seeing businesses do really well. 1, sell to bigger brands, whether that be retailers or government. Second, looking at the international market and not thinking, do I put that on hold because Brexit's coming down the line? And third, making the most of the digital opportunity. Yes, selling on marketplaces, but also thinking about how you're using social, selling via your own website, even looking at things like Alexa, in terms of Alexa is becoming much more common in the household. We're looking at how a small business is using this to connect with customers, give great customer service. So it's about always kind of looking ahead. And just as a very final comment, our job, kind of back to the role of Enterprise Nation, is to hopefully make sure that small businesses get the support they need to kind of make the most of all these growth opportunities. So we ourselves have to practice what we preach. So we launched a new platform in April, which is a data-driven platform that not only connects small businesses with advisors, but is collecting data all the time on what small businesses are looking for, and therefore we're plugging the gap. So if we have businesses in Leicester who are looking for social media experts and there aren't any there, we're kind of going to government to say, right, we need to plug these gaps to make sure businesses get the support they need. Throughout your business journey, and again, forgive me if this is something that you just know as common sense, but it's just so important to get support the whole way along. And you will know as business owners that there's never a dull day in business. There's days where you're thinking, do I make that hire? Do we go global? What do we do about that contract that didn't come in? This one's come in, but I didn't expect that. And it's just so important to surround yourself with the support you need, whether that be practical support or someone who's kind of more that kind of mentor that can help you get to the point you need to. So that's what Enterprise Nation does. I hope that's been a little bit helpful. That feels as if it's been an incredible run through.